Hello, everyone. This is Defense Politics Asia. My name is Wyatt. Welcome to the DPA Open Mic. This is the episode number 17, 17. And so It's been a long time since we have open mic. Because last weekend, my mom is in the hospital. It's nothing serious. It's serious, but not urgent. But she was in hospital for observation and did a very small operation to kind of clear one of the arteries. So, and then some heart issue. Not sure is it vaccine related or is it just fats, old age problem. So my schedules are messed up during the weekend. So I just don't have the energy to do the open mic because I still got work I need to do. Similarly, I'm still actually pretty busy now, and I'm actually sick now. I myself is sick, caught the virus from probably my daughter who was sick the last week, but it's okay. I'm back. So I think maybe today's session won't be 5 hours because I'm not feeling particularly perfect. So anyway, so gonna say hi to people as usual. Hi to Stinging Metal, Rainer Braun, Cascader, Weeb Union, Homebound Traveler, Harry Itim, Kione, Acting Saint, Juninho Josemar 2023, Heinz Guderian or Heinz Guderian, and then who else? I miss it. Tarif Sharafi, MJ, NGS, Daniel Petrusic, Billy West, Serbian Village Harasser, uh, Commodore Veteran, Hamani Aymen, Do, who else? Vaun, Jenman, Emmanuel Fabric, Mayhem, Oni Juha, who else? Harris, Zochi, Emil, Mil West, Sami, Brutal, Hasda Entertainment, and Liam. Hi everybody. So I'm gonna drop the link. Let not waste time. Because this is not about me. This session is about you guys. It's you guys' opinion. My opinion, you guys hear almost every day. It's quite boring. So, um, yeah. Let me find the. I'm so confused. Oh shit! Oh shit! Uh, mm, okay. There's some lag. Okay, there's some lag. The okay, this and then this. Ah, okay. I finally found the. Sorry, guys. You guys see me fall for a while. So the link to join is now pinned on the DPA IRL channels chat live chat, and for those that wants to join in and chit chat, can join. The link is in DPA IRL. This stream is dual streamed on two different channels. The DPA main channel, which you must subscribe, and of course is also on the DPA IRL channel. And actually, I should share this thingy to more channels, right? Yeah. So I'm going to drop it into the DPA War channel as well. And someone is in. Hi, Whip.
Hello.
Yeah, you guys should know Weeb Union, right? Hi, though.
Hello.
So, so how's life?
Good. How about you?
Okay, wait. Let me wear my earphone. I just realized I need to wear my earphone.
Gotta do my hair
Okay.
here. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I can hear you guys now. All right. So
Sounded
solid. Can hear you guys now. So no. The war is going to be 1 year now. Yep, it's going to be like 1 year, and quite frightening. Waqar. Hi,
Hi
Waqar.
guys. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Oh.
Good, good. Oh, I just saw a super chat. Seymour Hersh article about the Nord Stream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so this is the viral article putting the blame on the Americans and the Norwegians for the blowing up of the Nord Stream. My prediction is based on... you guys see. You guys talk. What do you think?
Say that's a geostrategic article that dropped. Considering all the players involved, Norway and Germany should be at war.
Yeah. I totally don't understand what the hell is happening. What is Germany actually thinking and doing? They are not protecting their own interests, and they're just getting pulled by the nose. And and I think the defense minister just quit, right?
I actually think it's very interesting because Seymour has a past where he's done a lot of these articles exposing U.S. crimes abroad in wars like the Vietnam massacre, and so he has experience doing this, and he has come out with some revelations. If this is true or not, he doesn't actually come up with any proof. He just mentions some unknown sources within the U.S. government. So it could be true, but it's like hearsay, so you can take it with a pinch of salt. Russia is definitely going to use this article because it benefits them that someone is accusing the US of blowing up the pipelines, as they want a closer relation with Germany and Europe as a whole. They don't want to be enemies with Europe. A peaceful takeover is definitely more beneficial to them. While the US is far away and acting against Europe's interests, so it's generally a good situation for Russia. However, the EU is already on the Western side, and they have gone so far into that side that it's very difficult for them to just do a 180. They just end up doing a 360, as the German politician said.
My view on Seymour Hersh is, I mean, in my younger days, I probably would have looked at him as like un-American or unpatriotic because he exposed things that the military did, maybe when I was more idealistic. But I think the fact that I used to not like the guy because of what he said, even if it was true, and the fact that he's saying it now, and I'm more inclined to believe him considering the things he said in the past ended up being true. I think there's probably something to it. I mean, I would imagine whatever source he has, if it's a legit source, if there's probably risks involved, their life. I mean, I don't think they'd kill Seymour Hersh, but they'd probably kill his source. I mean, because that's a big deal. I mean, you're talking about an act of war, and they're, they can try to play it off with word games and diplo speak, but it's an act of war, and if you did it and it could be proven, it kind of leaves our ass hanging out in the wind for Russia to do whatever they want back because, fair is fair, right? A world of rules and equity and all that. So you blow up my pipeline, what, I get to blow up something too, right? I mean, that's kind of stupid game they want to play, and
That's why the Russians send Chinese balloons into the United States, right?
I believe that it is. I'm more inclined to believe that the West has blown up the pipeline, and that is purely because if it was Russia, then the only purpose would be a false flag operation. But a false flag operation needs you to actually use that. Because what's the point of a false flag operation if you just blow up your own base and do nothing about it? So considering they didn't do anything about it, I'm not inclined to believe it's the Russians doing a false flag operation. I'm more inclined to the West doing it to sabotage the relation between Europe and Russia, and at the same time make Europe more dependent on American oil and Norwegian oil. So the beneficiaries here are the US and Norway. So it makes sense for them to be the culprits.
I think it's simple. It's not a false flag because nothing has changed, right? Like the Russians didn't really do anything, after the Nord Stream blow up. Like there's no really any changes of what they say, what they do. So it's definitely not false flag.
I think it was because of the weather, really, because Nord Stream 2 is still there, And I mean, I believe the US is competent enough to, if they want to blow up the pipelines, to blow up both. And I personally believe it was the Russians because one, the pipeline's still there, the second one, and the negotiations for the second pipeline haven't gone through, so they could basically charge whatever they wanted for the gas. The winter really hit hard, but I'm looking at the temperatures and it's like 15 degrees out here, and prices for gas are going basically down and further down. So there isn't really a reason to open Nord Stream 2, and it would have been forced if gas had been necessary, but because gas isn't necessary, they basically just blew up the pipeline, and because they would have legally been obliged to continue delivering gas because there were contracts. But for the
I
second
think the
pipeline,
timing
there
is
aren't
important.
any,
Yeah,
and so they
yeah.
didn't blow up the second one.
Yeah,
I would like to discuss about the timing of the appearance of the article. And today they're meeting in Munich, and this is basically to observe the first year completion of the war. And there are a lot of pledges made by the West, and there were different messages actually coming. Like Scott Ritter, I was watching his video, and in that he basically emphasized that the West has actually lost the war, and now it was basically a pep talk for the Ukrainians to giddy up with a lot of support coming from the West. But that's more of rhetoric. And another thing which has come out now is, I think there was some Austrian journal who said that in case somebody asked that, are you going to, how do you operate these tanks and you send it to Ukraine, straight away said that, we remove the uniform, we get registered as Ukrainian volunteers, and then we join. So I think the last time we discussed that who's going to man these tanks and armaments, most probably it's going to be these guys from NATO. But there was a lot of, I think, disappointment. I could listen to the speech by the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who said, we've been preparing all this NATO forces and armament for basically one enemy, and that was Russia. And in case we are supporting the Ukrainians, so, we are doing the same job that we were meant for. But the timing of the appearance of Seymour Hersh article is very critical because this appears about a week before completion of the first year, and he precisely knew it that there are going to be a lot of alabula about this war, the observance of anniversary of the war in Munich. So I think timing was critical. One, it sent a very strong message to the Germans that basically it was an economic sabotage conducted by the West, the US, and it was without their information. So there's a lot of, I think, discussion within Germany also. So these are, I think, two very, very important aspects. One is timing of appearance of this article. The other is completion of 1 year and the disappointment being displayed in the Western capitals. Although on the media they're showing a lot of bravado, but on ground, I think, as Scott Twitter, I think Scott Twitter, he mentioned that the U.S. journal went to the president and told him that actually we have lost and this is much the Ukrainians could do. But the political leadership told the military, no, you just show a very brave face and the lies. So I think there's a lot of division within NATO, and there's a lot of division between political and military leadership because any sane mind who can see the writing on the wall would not be now looking for extension of the war. But I think the new liberals will push it, and Ukrainians are going to suffer. So these are the initial thoughts on completion of first year of the war.
I was just going to ask a question. If the pipeline wasn't blowing up and all Russia had to do was turn it off, and then Sebastian was saying, well, they're obligated under contracts to keep pumping gas. I mean, with all the sanctions in place against Russia and the cutting off of Russia, why would Russia be obligated to fulfill those contracts? And what would anyone be able to do to make them fulfill the contracts? I mean, they could literally just turn it off, not fulfill the contracts, and then do what they're doing now, which is sell to other people. I'm just asking.
Yeah, that's right. But
You know
I
what?
think the purpose of this war, somebody was also mentioning, is to create a wedge between, Germany and Russia. Because if you look at last 15 years, there was I think, a very good economic relationship. I've been to Russia and see a lot of Mercedes coming to Russia. People even travel by road, and there was a camaraderie also. I think Germany was one country which was still till last opposing any military option, despite that they were dragged into it. I doubted that Putin would have shut down the gas because as a goodwill he would have kept it. And but I think blowing up the gas pipeline was mainly to create a wedge between Germany and Russia, and also affect the dependence of Germany and rest of Europe on the Russian gas. So I think there is a message in that. And if you see within the German leadership, including the Chancellor, was very reluctant. It was only, I think, our immature foreign minister uh, who was talking of her, because she's been educated, I think, in UK and US, and a very typical leader, which are being planted in most of the Europe. So I would still feel that Putin would have never shut down the gas, and this was basically done to one, create a wedge between Germany and Russia for good. And then, of course, since there is no reason, now they can look for other sources of energy. Even I think the Americans would be able to sell their oil to Europe, and there are so many other companies. So I feel that Germany would have been the last one to really jump into it.
I think the blowing up the pipeline, US did not blow both. I think because it's just a warning. It's a warning to Germany, because Germany has been holding back, during that time where they're not really willing to supply arms to Ukraine because they want to hold back. It's partly also because of their pacifist kind of direction in their government, in their foreign policy, but they are also holding back. They really don't want to escalate the fight. But then they're under a lot of pressure, and they really wanted the gas because that's what their industry needs. And I think US just wanted to send out a very big message to Germany, is that we blow up one. This is this is a warning to you. We can blow up the other one if you want to. And then Germany have to play ball. So it is very curious why they only blow up one. They could have blown up both. They blew up the old one, right? For what I know, the new one was not blown up. So it is very interesting how that happened. And there isn't really much geopolitical talk about this issue, which was so obvious. It was so obvious. So the article to me, it didn't really teach me new things because it's so clear. But the problem is it's still anonymous source, and that's not the proper source. That's my problem with the article, which is as
And
good
there are
as
multiple
us
mistakes
talking.
in it.
But Seymour Hersh is a he is a Pulitzer winner writer, and
Right.
he what, Watergate, Miley Massacre, you name it, he's been
Abu
in it, and he was
Parade.
he was proven right through the whole thing. He's never been. There's only one instance I think he actually kind of slipped up, and like Larry Johnson, the ex-CIA guy, they planted a story with Larry Johnson from one of his sources within the CIA so they could discredit him later. And that could have very much happened to Cy Hersh with the one he got wrong. But people are acting like, he has no credibility. He's just a random podcaster that came up with this. This is Cy fucking Hersh. This is the man of journalism, of investigative journalism, and that's why I've always laughed at that.
And
Sorry.
that's why
And the
all his
timing of the
big
article,
stories.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
based right on the cusp of the Munich Security Conference. I mean, the Munich Security Conference this year is pretty much meaningless, anyways, because Russia's not there, China's not there, so it's more of an echo chamber this year. So we already knew what they were going to say. They're going to just show up a brave face, make a few noises, try to bolster each other, pat each other on the shoulder and stuff. I mean, it's no coincidence that Ursula von der Leyen suddenly shows her face all of a sudden after, not being around doing nothing for the last 6 months. And what I find myself wondering is like the people who aren't speaking, like Angela Merkel, we haven't heard from her for a while. And Gerhard Schroeder, we haven't heard from him for a while either. And you can't really have a dialogue on Russia and Europe-Russia relations without these characters involved. Because von der Leyen, Annalena Baerbock, I mean, they don't have a history with like having a relationship with Russia, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Look at what Orban's saying. He was saying you need to fight inflation, not Russia. I think he said that this weekend or last week. You know, he's one of the only guys in the EU and NATO that's trying to, you know, I guess save Europe from its own stupidity, but they probably don't see it that way.
Yeah, there's another interesting thing, to be noted. This is George Soros' speech, in one of the forums, and he targeted India. It was very surprising for me, and he mentioned the nexus between Adani and Modi, and he then reminded Indians that you are part of the Quad, but you take a lot of oil from Russia. And I tell you, India has been in a very comfortable position with the West because they are part of the Quad also, and they have very good relations. But they were trying to maintain a balance. And George Soros, you know it, he almost controls entire Europe. So he is actually an icon of the neoliberals, and unfortunately, he's tagged as a uh, you know someone who is doing it for charity. But basically, he's been used by the CIA for bringing color revolution in a lot of countries. So this is, I think, again, he gave a warning to India. Actually, it's very surprising. We're sitting in Pakistan, we're trying to read it out, and Indians are worried. And he almost mentioned that because of this, there may be. He actually hinted maybe a regime change in India in such a large country. So I would say that neocons are desperate, the neoliberals, and so they have unleashed their mouthpieces and frontmen, and they are very very desperate because India does need energy. There was a lot of shortage, especially after COVID, when the markets were shutting down and trade was shut down. So they had to look at the alternatives, and Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar had to actually explain it to the West that why they had to keep the supplies open because they were not getting it because of this war. So, look at the angles this Ukraine-Russia war is generating, and how the West is prodding and coercing, larger states also to follow their because they feel that everybody has to take their position. So this is again a very interesting development, and I don't know how the Indians take it. But looking at the response from India, it looks they were not very happy, and probably there are going to be a lot of tensions. But so Adani, it was one of the biggest tycoons. He was third richest man in the world, and within I think 2 weeks, his stocks, fell by $118 billion. Imagine. So it was a big jolt given by, the I would say the New York-based financial institutions just to punish India for, they're just buying oil from Russia because they need it. And so basically, they would like to squeeze Russia from all sides. And so this is part of the economic warfare within the hybrid war. So these are some important lessons. But for us, this is a very major development that a country like India has been openly threatened in a forum that you have been, and so they linked it that you sit with us in the Quad, but you boil a lot of Russian oil. So I think these are the things to be discussed. This meeting in Munich after first year of completion of war is very very important, and I am I am fearing that in frustration these guys can do anything. Yeah, thank you.
I agree, Waqar. One thing I wanted to say is that you mentioned Soros. Yes, he plays a bigger part than I think that a lot of people understand. He's like the connection with money that gets all these groups together and organizes it. One of the things I believe the West is really mad at India is that it is taking in Russian oil, mixing it with its own reserve, and then selling it to Europe at like 3-4 times the cost. That is, I'm glad India is benefiting from that because we have to understand, and this is what I feel as American, we got to start understanding we cannot just go stomping our foot wherever we demand we want influence just so our corporations can make money. What we need to do is learn to compete honestly with the reserves that we have, with our own raw materials, but we don't want to do that. We want to own the whole chessboard, and that's the whole problem. And kudos to the Indian people for making some bank off of this stupidity the West has put us in. The other thing is that we were talking about, communication. Who right now, and it was, I'm sorry, is it Tarif?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tarif, you brought it up. Who is really in the West? Do we have qualified right now that Lavrov could sit across from and actually have an open, honest, trustworthy dialogue? There is nobody in this Biden administration that Russia will trust, and I don't blame them. And there's the nexus. I swear to God, I wish one country would come up as we do not recognize Joe Biden as the president of the United States. That could almost end all of this, if you think about it, but it's never happened. So I'll end my rant there.
If Biden was smart, he would select Trump as a special envoy like they've done with Carter. And he would go over there and talk to Putin in Ukraine and get a deal done. Whether he became president again or not, because they would actually probably deal with him in the sense from respect, because he was one of the guys that stood up to him. He's pretty plain spoken. He might become president again. I'm just saying, if that was the smart thing to do, that if you want to pick somebody who's got some pull and sway and that the Russians would actually respect, what are you going to do? You could go back through the Biden administration, the Trump administration, Obama, and probably back to Desert Storm. What diplomat is worth a shit that would sit across from Lavrov right now? Trump got to shake hands with North Korea, with Kim on the other side of the DMZ. So, I just figure, he'd be like a Rodman or something, or a Carter, make him a special envoy, make him the guy to go over there and deal with peace. But they won't do that. They'll just keep doing the same stupid stuff they always do.
Yeah. Remember when the war hadn't begun, like the early weeks of February, when Boris Johnson was still in power, and Liz Truss, I believe, was the foreign minister of Britain, and her and Lavrov had a one-on-one meeting with each other, and he said, like, speaking with her was like talking to some robot or something. Basically, all she did was offer him scripted responses. So ever since the war has begun, if you've noticed really carefully, Russia has not really received a credible negotiator from the West to sit down with. It's always been a few brands, a few faces, a few puppeteers, some fools, basically. And we're talking about Sergei Lavrov, somebody who's been the foreign minister of Russia for 2 decades now, a career diplomat. To not have proper professionals before him is a direct insult to basically the Russian government itself. So if the West really had any inclination towards any goodwill, any good negotiation, they would have engaged, Angela Merkel, but they didn't, right? She's totally crippled.
And you look at the Biden cabinet. A guy like Lavrov is going to sit across from a guy who wears lipstick and steals luggage, or who dresses like a man and wears a naval admiral's uniform. You know what I'm saying? Not that those people are the ambassadors, but that's the kind of people you're got in your administration. Those are the kind of people you're giving favors to and giving ambassadorships to and stuff like that. It's a joke. How could you take it seriously? And then on top of that, they already know, just so you know, all those Minsk agreements were negotiated in bad faith. I don't really know where anyone would think there's a diplomatic route to go right now. Other than Russia does exactly what it wants and ends it on its terms, because the other side is just full of incompetence and dangerous people and children. And I don't know. I just don't see there's anything there for Russia to look at and see anything to work with.
I agree with you 100%. It's like we're juvenile, smug children going to sit across a professor of literature, and we're going to tell them about literature itself when we have no clue, because all we read is comic books. It's just that insane to me. I like you said, how can they take us in good faith after what was said about Minsk? I mean, this is what kills me is that it's almost you couldn't actively try to make yourself more less trustworthy than they're doing right now. Period. Great points, Vaun and Tarif, I thought.
I think it is a common problem within the West about diplomacy. They gone from honest diplomacy and talks to scripts that already presented, like Lavrov said and Vaun Festus said. It is just repeating words and words without any meaning behind them. And it is bad because it will always generate problems and misunderstanding and mistrust in the world.
Which is why, going back to what Waqar said, hurling veiled threats towards Modi and the Indian government might just, come to backfire against the West, because you can say whatever you want about Modi, but he's not an amateur. He knows politics.
That's right.
It's just
Yeah.
I mean, isn't Modi like very, very popular in India?
super.
I mean, overwhelmingly.
Super popular.
Like
Overwhelmingly.
frighteningly
He is.
popular.
Yeah, the Indian media
I
think that this threat
Like
by
the
George
Trump
Soros
of India
going
kind of
to
thing.
yes, more than Trump.
it is almost it's almost I think 70% following, at least in the some of the Hindu belts. This threat actually, some people are, some critic or analysts in India are suggesting that this threat is going to strengthen his next election, because people are going to rally around Modi. And I tell you, if India then decides to, let's say, get out of these alliances like Indo-Pacific, and so I don't know, they are pushing. The West is pushing everybody to form the Eurasian Brotherhood. I think we've been also waiting, like in SCO, and we wanted that Eurasian Brotherhood should come out. But I think they are going to accelerate it. The other aspect is, in the Munich conference, there were certain American intellectuals who were interviewed by DW. I'm just forgetting name of a professor. And there were a lot of, praise that she's very intelligent. And she then was asked, then how does this war end? And the objectives laid out by US and the NATO, as per her, were that when Putin is defeated, or when Putin changes his mind. So it means they're looking at a very long war. And they were saying that basically it was not fault of the West, but it is because of Russian aggression that has to be stopped. And she also said that Europe is changed forever. And mind you, we are listening to this sentence, Europe is changed forever. Every 50 or 40 years we listen to it whenever there's a European war. So they were very, very desperate. The main thing was, absence of sanity. You know, yeah, because I think that the way they are pushing, I think Russians and other countries and coercing, powers like India. Even we have been coerced, I tell you. Like Pakistan was coerced so badly financially, because in the hybrid war, then they start applying their tools, IFIs, and so far, I think we have weathered it well. Our foreign ministry also said that, this fake news of supplying of ammunition to Ukraine was false, because they had to then answer to the public what was happening. But there was a rumor, that probably this is happening. So they are trying to coerce everybody. And I feel that there should be sanity. I still feel that post Crimea 2014, they could have stopped it if they had intentions. Things could have been settled amicably. But now the way they are pushing, I am just worrying that it does not cross the red line, and something big like use of nuclear weapons takes. Just imagine, Europe getting destroyed because of absurdity of these neocons.
Every time I speak, right, everybody just keep quiet and just listen. It's like
I
it's in a lecture hall, right?
I just have a thought. What when the United States now is putting Russia under pressure, just to make them weak in the future conflict that United States is planning to do against China. People are thinking that if there will be a direct war between the United States and China, of course Russia would take part with China. But if Russia is weakened or still in the war with Ukraine, they could not provide such a big help.
I think
I am
Russians may
ready to
not
admit now at that time I am ready to admit a direct conflict between USA and China.
Well,
I think we did
what's
discuss
the
it
likelihood
along.
that China and America will even have a conflict in the first place? Why would China not just wait until the American state breaks down into, you know, their own little problems until they're ready to move on to Taiwan, or, you know, move on to expanding their influence in Central Asia or something like that, or it's the South China Sea?
Who's
For
to
the
say
United
that's not
States,
part of China's strategy? Like
but for the United States, it's
fracturing America from the inside.
For the United States, it's very easy to set up a war when they are not allowing China to get in Taiwan, and China has the right to be there because Taiwan is a part of China.
Well, would the people in Taiwan fight?
It's not true.
That's the question. Would the people in Taiwan fight though?
Why would they?
They will. They will. 100%.
I mean, isn't the whole point of this though to destabilize Russia? So there's a vacuum there that China has to deal with. I think that's the entire point. We don't want to go to war with China. We want to deal with a decentralized Russia. I think is the whole point.
So I want to put like the perspective in terms of what the Taiwanese will do. If you look at before the war started, we will think that, you know, Russia, if let's say Russia go to war with Ukraine, we will all think that Ukraine will just collapse, right? It's not true.
Yeah.
Ukraine fight. So the same thing goes for Taiwan. No, Taiwan is very independent, and you have to understand that they are actually still in a state of war with the People's Republic of China. They are actually in the exact same state as North and South Korea. They are having a civil war, and it has not ended yet. So people do not. A lot of people just haven't. A lot of people just forgot about that. The Chinese Civil War is actually not over. Taiwan is not Taiwan. Taiwan is actually Republic of China. That's their official name. So they are China, and People's Republic of China is also China. There's actually two Chinas, which is why the communist China, they try the entire world keep saying this thing. They have a one China policy. But the thing is that they never say which China is the China that they will recognize. For now, at this current moment, they recognize the communist China. So that's the one China policy, which is what because they don't want, even the People's Republic of China also do not want the world to be so explicit, because they don't want people to take side. They want flexibility. But if any day Republic of China becomes stronger, for example, maybe there's internal conflict, then they break apart, then a good chunk of China joins the Taiwanese Republic of China, then you can see that there's an immediate switch, and the whole world will still say the same thing. We still have a one China policy. So it's just one of the China. You guys sort it out. We only recognize one China. That's the one China policy. It's not necessarily the communist China policy. So that's one thing. Taiwan will fight. Will they win? I do not know. That's the thing. Yeah, that's
do they think
I just wanted to say though,
Hi guys.
We summoned
isn't it though?
So I have to pop in.
Isn't it though? Isn't it though that the United States though is trying to straddle the fence in both positions at the same time, trying to maintain its its links with China, not links, but its productions and all its products coming in from China. So they want to keep that flowing, but yet we want to sit there and say, well, if you go into Taiwan, which you consider yours, well, we're going to have a problem with that. So we got our foot in both camps. We're trying to straddle a fence that's going to be impossible to straddle for much longer, I think.
No,
yeah,
you say
I think so.
Well,
if you look at what Biden says, says we'll provide military aid to Taiwan. So,
well, the American reaction is quite obvious, right? That's what Americans do. When in doubt, just attack.
Yeah, but
let me correct some misconceptions
if United States provide military aid it depends on what kind of military aid. Just technical, like they are doing now in Ukraine, or they are putting boots on the ground. Because if they are putting boots on the ground, then then the United States is directly involved in this conflict. Like
Well,
it
it
would
depends on
be.
your perspective.
Yeah.
The United States is already directly involved in Ukraine. Yeah. Sorry, Drew.
Yeah, let me correct a bunch
Yes,
of
but not
misconceptions here.
from the
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Just stop.
Yeah, let me correct a bunch of misconceptions here. Firstly, Taiwan and China is not like North and South Korea. North and South Korea, there's a big demilitarization zone in the middle of them. There is no free flow of travel. They are technically at war and are literally at war. Taiwan and China, there are several international flights per day, like going back and forth between Taiwan and a bunch of the Chinese provinces. So there is free flow of trade and free flow of people going back and forth between Taiwan and China. So it's nothing like the relationship in North and South Korea. So that's definitely wrong. Whether Taiwan and Taiwanese will defend Taiwan if China invaded, yes, definitely. Because if like right now, I would ask the Americans, do any of you want war? The answer will most likely be no. But if China invaded the US, each one of you guys will pick up a gun and go fight the Chinese. It's the same kind of reaction. You're defending your homeland, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
neither the Taiwanese or the Chinese want to fight. Recently, in the last Taiwanese elections, like local elections, they actually booted out the pro-independence American-funded Taiwanese leader that was the one that invited Pelosi over, right? So the Taiwanese people know they don't want to be another Ukraine. They don't want to declare independence because they know, and China has repeated this many times, the only reason that China will invade Taiwan is if Taiwan declares independence. As long as it doesn't do that, the status quo remains, and they can slowly work towards a peaceful reunification. That slow might take decades. There is no set timeline. So the situation right now is if the US just stays out of it, China will never invade Taiwan. But the US wants to make China invade Taiwan because then that gives it a justification to go in. But right now its plan is failing because the people in Taiwan have already voted out their puppet. So
I just want to give some information about the One China policy. First of all, the One China policy is official by the UN, not only China, but the UN in resolution 2758 that was in 1971, and also by independently by like United States that said in Shanghai Communique of 1972, and I quote, the United States acknowledge that Chinese on either side of Taiwan Strait maintain there is but one China, and that Taiwan is a part of China. So on international ground and internal ground, everyone acknowledge that there is only one China. The problem here comes which China, which we have the vote of the UN who decided that Communist China or People Republic China, DRC, is the one that's going to fill the seats at the Security Council. Yes.
yeah.
So I
I
want
would
to
like to
Taiwan,
highlight a
this is
couple of
also
points.
Taiwan's position that there's only one China. They only
Yeah, because
disagree who rules China.
because they haven't
They
admit
say they
defeat
rule
in the
China.
Civil War. So I want to
Yeah.
add on to what Drew said. Though yes, there is commercial flights, but you know when is the first time they have flight after since the Civil War? It's 2008. 2008 from now is not that long ago. So I'm not, what I'm saying is real. It is still technically in a state of war. It's just that in 2008, the previous president Ma Ying-jeou, who is a pro-China president, took over, and one of the first things he did was to open up travel, and then he also he's also the reason why they removed the conscription after some time. So he was actively dismantling the Republic of China's military and the resilience against the People's Republic of China. So that's why he is one of the favorite politician by the communist China. So you can view it in either way you want. Like for example, people will appreciate the peace, or you can say that he's a traitor. So whatever, but that's what happened. So 2008 from now is actually not that long ago. It's just 15 years ago. So to say that it's
from this, yeah, but from
yeah,
this
to
you
say
can
that
see
it's
the
exactly different from North-South China Korea is not that accurate per se. Is that it's not that long ago that they are actually still
there are
in the
no
very
commercial flights between North-South and South Korea even today.
yeah, not yet,
But
not yet,
from
because
this,
they are in a much
yeah,
more severe situation because North Korea is not in the WTO. In 2001, China was invited into WTO because of some geopolitical needs from the United States to pressure Soviet Union, right? So that's why. And then with the increased trade and everything, it doesn't make sense for Taiwan to not have direct flight. So it's just it makes sense for everyone to do it,
yeah.
but they are
But
technically still at war, which is why it's very militarized in the islands exactly just next to China. So, but Taiwan is definitely not in a good state, militarily speaking, compared to China. Like in a wartime situation, Taiwan
they
would.
only have 20 million people. I think that 23 million people compared to 1.4 billion. It's not even a
It's
fight.
okay. They can
Yeah.
scream Slava Taiwanese.
But what you describe is
I
exactly
would like to.
what is a good example of what is actually going on politically in Taiwan. It always flip flops between the two.
Yes.
Like there's between pro independence and pro China, and then they'll go between the two. So
I think there's no good
most of the
options.
people in Taiwan just want life to go on as
But
normal.
I understood.
Only about
Sorry,
5% on each end want reunification, or they want independence. It's the extremists that want the status quo to change.
Same in Ukraine, right? The same situation in Ukraine where most of the people don't really care about Russian or Ukrainian or EU or not EU. It is the people that is on extreme ends that is actually pushing the politics. So
but in Ukraine, they managed to do a coup. That's the thing that changed everything, right? So if
we
Taiwan,
wait for
the
China to
US
have a
managed
coup
to
or
do a
Taiwan
coup
a
in
coup.
Taiwan, then shit is about to hit the fan. But before anything,
Don't you think Hong Kong is a good analogy for? Like, don't you think
you all
Hong
know
Kong is
that
a good
the
example?
coup in Ukraine was financed by the United States. So what would happen if the United States decide to finance this in Taiwan?
If the full government declares independence, China will invade. They have already said that. They've said that for decades. If
That's
Taiwan.
That's what I'm afraid, that they will provoke some unrest in Taiwan that China would consider necessary to invade, and then there will be the war between China and the United States, not China and Taiwan. Taiwan don't count when it comes to war between China and Taiwan.
Yes, Dracu, you have a point, but the Ukrainian war has changed a lot of things. Like I was just reading the supply lines and the logistics needed for Ukraine and the major capitals like London. You had Berlin, Washington, and Paris. They are worried about maintaining logistics. So if NATO at present finding it difficult to just militarily support one theater of operation. So if you look at Russia versus NATO, is just one theater. So if you take Poland and Baltic states, and then of course in the south there could be three theaters. So they are finding it extremely difficult. And like Stoltenberg saying that the Ukrainians are kind of that they are trigger happy and they are spending more ammunition than what we are producing. So there are a lot of crises of production of weapon and equipment already faced by NATO. I'm sure the US will speed up as military industrial complex, but then they have to also keep stocks because Putin has said that war could go on for another 2 years, and now I think in the Munich there was a discussion that it's going to last for another 2 years. So they're looking at in some form or the other. So it means there's going to be military preparation. Now, how much the West can spare for Taiwan? So it's a very big question. Look at the distance involved. I don't think so. Japan or their allies like Australia can beef up. I doubt it, because we've seen them in Afghanistan. There were 46 countries, putting everything together, but the war stretched for 20 years. So basically, they were diluted in time instead of space. So again, this is a military damage. So I think the Ukrainian war has pushed that in case there was any plan for the West to drag China across the Taiwan strait, that has been pushed back because there is no logistic stamina. Ultimately, if you are looking at strengthening Taiwan, they have to give them some military hardware, some aircrafts or whatever. And there's going to be huge maritime operations. I think yesterday Putin announced that they're going to mobilize 10 ships, I think in the north and in the south, and they are nuclear capable. So probably you will see a maritime theater coming up, or at least the posturing part of it. Yeah. So all that, I think, I don't think so that US would desire an immediate conflict. Yes, in case, as I think DRU has suggested, that in case things change within Taiwan, or they also feel that they can have better relations in one China, maybe gradually, as he's saying, 10 years. But I feel that US desiring a conflict between Taiwan and China has been put, if there was any plan, because there were a lot of visits and they were inciting the Chinese. Now it is pushed back, unless, something, either declaration of independence by Taiwan and then China taking initiative on their own, because China can always see that the West is weakened and entangled in the main theater in Europe. So there are a lot of complicated things. Even India is being coerced and pushed out. I think India was part of the Quad, and this should have been the last thing to be done by the West. There are a lot of, I think they are frustrated, and in frustration they're going to commit strategic mistakes. So let's hope there's no war in Asia, and they should contain the war in Europe.
Waqar, you bring up something very, very poignant, because after World War II, it was Americans' doctrine to be able to fight on in both the Pacific and the Atlantic at the same time. But like you said, logistically, it can never happen. Not in today's age. Not with us being separated.